how do you achieve realistic and grounded colors in your painting? In this video, we'll start with a very simple sketch and work all the way to the final image. I'll walk you through all the main steps of the process, and stay tuned because along the way I'll share some practical tips about color. So let's get started. Now, before we dive into color, the best way for you to begin a painting oftentimes is with a very simple line work sketch. This is the stage where you want to keep things as loose and flexible as possible. You're not trying to create a finished drawing here. Instead, you're laying down what could be the foundation of your entire painting. Just make sure you're following some basic perspective rules and simple construction principles. Even if the sketch is rough, it still needs to make sense. Once that's in place, you can begin to position the elements in your scene, start thinking about composition and where you want your focal point to be. For example, in this scene, I'm placing the tower slightly to the right side of the canvas, and this kind of gives me a strong anchor for the composition. From there, I can start building the environment around it. Sometimes you want to try and frame your focal point in an interesting way. In this case, I'm going to use the mountains in the background and the vegetation around them, and also in the foreground, maybe a couple of tall trees could help to frame our subject. You can also add some dynamic shapes, like a winding road leading into the scene that creates like a sense of depth and movement. If your goal is to achieve believable, grounded and realistic colors, reference images are essential. Don't try to guess everything from imagination, especially if you're still learning. Collect a few reference photos that match the mood or lighting you're going for. Study them carefully, look at how light behaves in those scenes, observe the local color of the object and how it shifts under different lighting conditions. Then try to bring that information into your painting. You're not copying the reference directly, you're just using it as a guide to make better decisions. And that's oftentimes the key to getting like this really believable and grounded colors. And of course, you can just color pick the textural information, the color information from your reference images. And if you have more time, you can even, practice and try to approximate the colors with your color picker, and that will also, bring similar results. Color can feel overwhelming, and if you want to truly understand how color and light work together and use them with confidence in your paintings, you need a deeper and structured approach. Inside my digital painting mastery program, there is a whole chapter dedicated to color and light. I break everything down step by step, so you're not guessing or piecing things together on your own. You'll get clear lectures, real-time demos, and targeted exercises designed to help you improve quickly and actually see progress in your work. If you're ready to take your skills seriously and paint with more control and clarity, you can get started with the link in the description. There's also a limited time 30% discount available right now. Alright, now moving on to another important aspect of color, which is understanding value. Values are one of the most important aspects of painting. They determine how readable your image is and how strong the overall impression feels. Oftentimes, people get confused a little bit by thinking that their color is off or their decisions regarding colors are just not as good as possible, but in reality it's all about working with wrong values. Realistic color depends heavily on correct value relationships. It doesn't matter how accurate your hues are if your values are off, so the image will still feel wrong. I usually start in the mid-tone range when establishing local color. This kind of gives me more flexibility. From there, I can gradually push the darks darker and the lights brighter as the painting develops. And it also makes it easier to group values in a clean and organized way. Let's take a look at the overall scene. We have a light sky in the background and a generally cool atmosphere. The darkest area right now is the grass in the foreground, and I'm just going to introduce a couple of trees in the foreground as well, even darker. For the background, I didn't want to go with a typical clear sky and some simple mountains. Instead, I decided to introduce rain in the distance. This adds more interest and mood to the scene. Creating rain, though, can be a little bit tricky, especially if I want to create this dense atmosphere. You need to pay close attention to your values. At first, it might look disconnected from the rest of the image, but once you adjust the values correctly, it starts to feel integrated. The key is making sure the rain, sky, and ground all belong to the same value structure, more or less, because we're trying to sell like this really heavy rain in the background. And of course, you can use Soft brushes to build up this effect gradually. They help create that hazy atmospheric look. You can also use the smudge tool to add direction and blend certain areas together. This is going to give the rain more motion and makes it feel more natural. With clouds covering the sky, the whole scene becomes more dynamic and visually a bit more interesting. Now, the next step is to start thinking about form. So far, everything has been relatively flat. Now I want to introduce some volume. And we do this by creating some shadow shapes. Since the scene is overcast, the light is coming mainly from the sky. That means that the lighting will be soft and diffused. In this type of scenery, you won't see harsh, sharp shadows like you would on a sunny day. Instead, the shadows will be subtle and gradual. Look for all the areas where objects overlap or where planes meet. These are often slightly darker due to occlusion. I usually start by blocking in the shadows areas on a single layer. Use a very simple brush to map out where the shadows go. Keep it clean and readable, and then you can soften those shapes and introduce edge variation. Some edges should be softer while others can remain sharper. This variation helps describe the form more clearly. Now, this is also a good moment to start thinking about materials. For example, the tower in the center can have different surface qualities. Maybe part of it are worn down or damaged. The roof tiles could have a warmer tone to contrast with the cooler environment because it's our focal point, and additional contrast of color helps quite a bit. Smaller decisions like this add a lot of visual interest. Always think about how you can make your design more engaging without overcomplicating it. Now, another important tip when working with color, and it's a key concept that it's important to understand, it's all about color harmony. Color harmony doesn't mean using a fixed set of colors that always work together. It's about making sure all your color choices feel like they belong in the same world. Everything should feel unified. In most cases, this comes down to your light source. Ask yourself where the light is coming from and what color it is. In this scene, the light is cool, slightly desaturated, so all my colors need to reflect that. I avoid extreme contrast between warm and cool tones. Instead, I adjust the hue, saturation, and value so everything feels consistent. Reference images are extremely helpful here. They show you how colors behave in real-world conditions. So yeah, keep this in mind, especially when dealing and trying to understand what kind of approach you want to take to colors in your painting. All right, as we move forward, it's time to add more detail to the tower. Since it's the focal point, it deserves extra attention. Start refining the materials and add some variation. You can introduce contrast between different parts of the structure. You can play both with value contrast and temperature contrast. For example, you might add wooden elements under the roof. You can use stone textures around the windows and the gate. A good idea would be to show some signs of wear and aging. Maybe there's water damage near the base of the tower. These details help make the structure feel more believable, and they also give the viewer more to look at. At the same time, don't try to finish everything all at once. Work on the tower for a bit, then move to another area, come back to it later with fresh eyes. This helps you avoid overworking one part of the image. Alright, after that you can move on to the middle ground. Start adding some volume to the vegetation, define the shapes of the trees and bushes, and also think about how the light interacts with them. Continue describing form using your established lighting conditions. At this point, I realized the composition could use better framing, so I added some foreground elements. This could be trees or clusters of foliage. They help guide the viewer's eye toward the tower. Keep these elements relatively simple. They shouldn't compete with the focal point, of course. Use texture brushes to suggest detail without fully rendering everything. And another issue I noticed was that the tower didn't feel fully integrated. It looked like it was placed on top of the scene rather than being part of it. To fix that, you can add some vegetation growing on it. This helps connect it to the environment. I also adjusted the values so it's more naturally in the scene. Now it feels a bit more grounded and believable. Feel free to spend more time on areas that need it. For example, the roof tiles might require extra detail. You can add subtle color variation and texture. These small touches go a long way. You can even add some smaller elements on top of the roof. Experiment until it feels right. You can even add some smaller elements on top of the roof. Experiment until it feels right. Okay, now let's spend a bit of time on the characters in the foreground. The process here is very similar to everything else. You can start with a very simple shape, then introduce form by adding shadows, blocking darker values where shadows would naturally occur. Keep it simple at first, then refine the edges to improve the accuracy. I'm kind of going for a medieval style for these characters, so for the first one I'm using a slightly cool red tone. Since the environment is cool, the color should stay consistent with that. You can add some details like weapons, clothing folds, or hair, then move on to the other characters. Here the exact hue is less important. What matters more is value and contrast. Hue is less important. What matters more is value and contrast. When it comes to showing scale, there's some useful tricks. One of the best is using familiar objects. For example, adding birds on top of the tower immediately gives a sense of scale. The viewer can quickly understand how big the structure is. The same applies to the trees and human figures. They act as visual references. These elements help ground your scene and make it easier to read. Of course, there are some exceptions, and these are not the only tools available at your disposal, but these elements help ground your scene and make it easier to read. At this stage, continue refining the entire image. Move back and forth between different areas, keep checking your values, colors, and composition. Make sure everything feels cohesive, nothing should stand out in a distracting way, and most importantly, focus on telling a clear visual story. Thank you so much for watching till the end. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing, it helps a lot. Don't forget to check other videos on the channel, like this one for example. I'm sure you'll like it. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one, coming soon.